there's this privacy policy and there's a chief grievance officer.
You're the chief grievance
I'm
officer.
the chief grievance officer.
Okay.
That kind of user love I did not receive in my 7-8 years of app building back in the day. It was so good. I was like, this is worth putting your life behind and building for the people. Being a free engagement first platform to being a platform that adds value in the lives of people in a very, very real utilitarian way is how we started monetizing. And I think that whole journey of figuring out things, of figuring out what will people need, what will people pay for, what will people value, what will they pay repeatedly was hugely gratifying. And we used to spend that point in time 500 rupees per day of sorts at 5 rupees CAC to begin with to get 100 customers per day, 100 users per day. Then we started getting 1000 users per day, and that's where we kept it 1000 users per day for a very long period of time, for the first 1 year.
You know, it would sound like on this journey, revenue and monetization you've spoken about a couple of times could be one of those things, because this space, the other challenge with this space is this can become so opportunistic, right? Because people are vulnerable, our users are vulnerable. So how do you prevent that from happening? How do you keep a check on that? Yeah.
What was the handshake for?
Sahi tha. Thank you. Welcome to the Day One podcast, a series where we focus on stories and journeys of founders and companies Elevation is partnering with. We have Prashant with us today. He's the founder of AppsForBharat, a company that aims to help millions of Indians take part in their spiritual journeys and feel more happier and content in their everyday lives. Through the first app that AppsForBharat has built, Sri Mandir, the company today helps millions of Indians consume devotional and religious content, engage with their favorite deities, experience the power of community, and experience all that the app has to offer. Welcome, Prashant. I'm very excited to have you. Perfect. So to kick off, Prashant, before we dive into the AppsForBharat journey and talk more about Sri Mandir, the product, I wanted to spend a little bit of time to have our audience know you and how the journey really, came to fruition and how it all came together for you. So let me step back a little bit. I think spirituality and religion feels like a bit of an unconventional space to dabble in, right? Like when I think about all the action that's happening out there, so much is happening in very transaction-first economies, things that we as consumers spend a lot of time physically transacting, touching, and so on. So I'm curious, like in your journey, how did you stumble on this space? What came together to make you feel excited? How did it all come together for you? So just stepping back a little bit.
Sure. Why I'm building this company and this app and going after this particular behavior has a lot to do with my background. And I would want to take you to, let's say, roughly 30 years back. I revealed my age here. Anyway, so I'll take you to my childhood and the kind of background that I come from. And that has a lot to do with why I'm doing this. I originally come from this village which is around 40 kilometers away from Kanpur. Now, we as a family, my father is amongst 6 brothers, and apart from him, all of his brothers still do farming and cattle rearing back in the village. My dad was the one who was interested in technical education, so he did his ITI diploma and took up a job as an electrician in HL in Amethi. So this is 1986 when he took up this particular job. Now, economically, my family was not very well-to-do. Financially, we were quite struggling from the very beginning and so on. Now, my dad, there was a bunch of personal tragedies that happened to my family back in the day. So it is roughly 1987 when, soon after my dad's marriage, because of a vaccine reaction, he lost his eyesight. And then after almost a year, I was born. Now, when I was born, I was diagnosed with glaucoma. So the first 6 years of my life, my parents used to take me to AIIMS in Delhi, which is roughly, let's say, 12-hour train ride every 15 days. They took me to AIIMS and till I was cured at the age of 6, we used to do that. Now, his salary, all the things that he had as enablement from his family were actually nothing to support all of that. Now, my dad used to say that, hey, I remember from that time to now, he used to say whenever there's a hard time in life, just do one thing, कर्म करते रहो, आगे बढ़ते रहो और भगवान का नाम लेते चलो. Now, I remember when I was of roughly 5 years of age, I started going to a Hanuman temple in my township. Every Tuesday used to offer, started with 5 rupees laddu, then it went on to become 21, 51 as we progressed. But it was a weekly ritual for us. Now, if you just look back, right? If I just look back, I realize that all of those practices that we did as a family gave us a lot of peace, hope, mental reinforcement, and whatnot. Today, if you look at it where we are today as a family, we have done okay for ourselves. I'm having a platform where I'm getting to build stuff. Sounds unreal, right? And I feel this is what India is. My family essentially is a representation of what most of the families in India look like. And what devotion and faith as a fabric gave to most of us, despite not having resources, not having access, was this hope and faith that if you keep working, if you keep moving, things will be fine. And I think this behavior or this practice for an entire nation is something that most of us has experienced in our lifetimes, right? So my dad also used to tell me that, hey, the only way to break out of this economic cycle is to go study well. So I did my BTech in mechanical from a state college in Kanpur, went on to do my master's from IIT Bombay, got very good exposure there and whatnot. Now, early on decided to build something, but when I was thinking of building this company, I was looking back at what are the behaviors that still haven't really moved online, are large enough, is where this, I went back to soul searching, and I was thinking at what are the behaviors which haven't really moved online as yet. And I realized devotion is one big category, and there were other things I was exploring. And that's when I started exploring about devotion, because this is one deep behavior that hasn't really got the treatment it deserves for masses, that hasn't really got a digital platform or enablement or access that all of these people who need these practices or who need these enablements in their daily life to do better is not being available to them. Can I build something like that? Is how the starting trigger of exploring this particular space.
Got it. No, very interesting. I think what you said really hits home. I think all of us at some point of our lives, frequency may vary, but turn back to religion and spirituality as that guiding light, right? And to give faith and hope at some point. I'm curious, so this was the starting, sort of the germ of you wanting to dwell in this space. Today, as you think about it, right, looking out in the future, what do you see the role of AppsForBharat or Sri Mandir in the life of India? This is truly a product which I think transcends all aspects of India 1, India 2. How do you see this playing out?
Yeah. Now, let's understand a typical user and what is it that devotion gives to him, and let's understand this user persona in some way, right? So I would broadly classify these users into 2 to 3 buckets, I would say, and let's go to them one by one. One, people who are deeply religious, who practice bunch of things around devotion in their daily or weekly lives. There are a lot of people who actually pray daily. There are a lot of people whose trigger to pray is weekly. I believe in Lord Hanuman. I would pray every Tuesday and so on. Now, these people, I would say, are actively engaged users or active engaged people when it comes to devotion as a practice. Now, when you look at today, for them, you would realize that for their engagement needs, they would go to this, all the information around their devotional needs, it's scattered all over the internet.
Yeah.
They would get some of these needs fulfilled over a WhatsApp, or a Facebook, or a YouTube, or various websites. The first thing that we realized that these people would need is aggregation of information, curation of information, catered to them in the right way. Second problem that we realized was there was a lot of misinformation that was being crept in the name of devotion. People without thorough research used to say random things, and people used to refer those random things. So we realized for us to be able to serve these people very, very well, the first service we can give to them is give them curated, trusted information all in one place, packaged based on their needs and whatnot. So that's the first set of services that we built for them. Now, the people who in the offline world engage on a weekly or a daily basis, this makes sense for them. But also there's a certain set of people for whom it's a very occasional use case. If it is Diwali, I would pray. If it is Pitr Paksh, I would pray to my ancestors and so on. So they would be praying 4 to 5 times or 10 times a year, that kind of frequency. They might not be an active people who would pray, but they would engage in various other services around devotion, and they would want those accesses. Now, as a company, as a platform, we would want to solve for their information needs. We would want to solve for their praying needs, and we would want to solve for all the service access that they would need. And all of that should be built on a solid foundation of trust. Now, let's look at the user today. Like I said, right, the information is scattered. Can we be that platform which aggregates the information? That's one service that we are doing to this nation. So if you come to this particular app, you can create a digital shrine, and most people start their day by praying to a god or to a deity that they believe in. You can do that digital praying or manas puja on this particular app as you start the day. If you're feeling more devotional, you can listen to literature, stories, and whatnot. You can read all of that particular thing up. We give you daily recommendations based on who you are as a user, what your needs are, what your preferences are, and so on. Now, if I'm a user and it's an important day for me, now if you'd be, let's say, I know that you're from Delhi, for example, let's say, and a lot of people in Delhi go to Haridwar on a monthly, quarterly, or a yearly frequency, for example. If it is an important day in your family and your mom says that, hey, this is an important day for us, I would want to make an offering to Mansa Devi. What she does today is she would put 51 rupees in her home shrine, and they would say whenever a relative
keep it aside,
she'll say whenever a relative will go there, I'll give that money to them and make it particular.
Bilkul, yeah.
But that need was immediate because it's an important day. I would want to make an offering for Amit in his name. There was no enablement as such, or no access as such that was available to people. I recollect a recent review that I received on the app. So there was this user who said, I am from Jodhpur, and my brother has not been keeping well for many days now. We as a family believe that we should light up a lamp at Har Ki Pauri in Haridwar, for example. Now, today, that is something that will give him a lot of peace and mental reinforcement. He doesn't have access to this service. So we realized, can we be that trusted party in between, which helps people accomplish all of these needs, desires, requirements in a way which is cost effective, in a way which is hugely gratifying and trustworthy? That's what the platform is going to be. Can we be the blessing and happiness and wellness reinforcement provided to an entire nation in various shape and forms through information, through praying needs, serving praying needs, through access to services, is what we would want to be remembered as or stand for, I would say.
No, very, very exciting. I think if I just think about the number of houses in India which would have some little offering tucked away in the Ghar Ka Mandir, in that hope ki when we go to this specific temple, to ye yahan chadhana hai, and this one needs to go here, that'll be a lot. So
I'll give you an example, right? I think this is, so for example, let's say if I were to pick one set of people that are actively using our platform are the people who are SME or MSME owners, people who own businesses. So 30% of our people who use our services on the app belong to this community. Now, if you look at their offline behavior today, what do you see? You see that, hey, when they go and start their day, which they call as Bhoni, prior to Bhoni, they would offer a basket of flour or something to their work shrine, whatever shrine that they set up there, right? So it's a spend of 30 to 50 rupees, which they do only to feel blessed, only to feel that good luck and whatnot. Now, these people also have this desire that, hey, I have been a big believer of Salasar Balaji in Rajasthan, and they do allocate that money. We would want to be that partner for them that gives them instant gratification, where they would want to connect to that shrine in Salasar Balaji, which will make them feel more empowered, more lucky, more blessed. We would want to be that. Now, if 10% of that community adopts to our service and gets daily gratification from here, I think the kind of wish fulfillment or these request fulfillment we do on a daily basis would be larger than a food delivery company in India. That's the kind of scale we would want to build for. That's the kind of service we would want to make to a nation. That's what we are here for.
No, very exciting. I think it sort of takes me to my next question, which is, and this is for a lot of our listeners who are either aspiring founders or early founders in their journeys, right? One question you often struggle with is, how large is this opportunity, right? And at least as investors, we always take that lens to it. I know the way you're describing it sounds very large, but this has also been an evolution of now you immersing yourself in this problem over many years. Yeah. But if you look back to when you started, was it evident to you that this is the contours of how this will play out, this is large, or it didn't matter because you were just sold that this is what you want to build, this is what you're designed to do? Like, how did you think about it?
Sure. So one is, when I started thinking of this particular space, this is 2020, at the start, January, February, was when I started experimenting about this particular space. I was also open to try newer spaces as well and see, because it is my second venture now, I was thinking more holistically on what should I chase and how should I build and whatnot. And I've been building apps since 2014. Since 2014 was 2013 actually. 2013 in my last semester in my degree, I was building a product. So which means, think of this, right? This is my 10th year of building an app. Yeah, 10th year of building an app, yes. So 2020, when I started thinking of this whole category, I ran a few experiments. And the kind of, and if you see that on all my products that I was trying, I was putting my number in the hamburger menu and people could actually reach me out on the WhatsApp and they could send me the feedback. I mean, they would not
That's still there, right?
It's still there.
Your
Yes.
number is still
Yes.
there.
But it's a bit hidden.
Okay.
If you go to the there's this privacy policy and there's a chief grievance officer.
You're the chief grievance
I'm
officer.
the chief grievance
Okay.
officer.
Fair enough.
So my number is still there. I still get 10-20 calls a day of people who are like, oh, this is what we're trying to do, and so on. So essentially, I still keep hearing from my users. So back in the day, the kind of feedback I received for my app, when we tried the first version, second version, and so on, it was very profound. It was very deep. There are people who said that, hey, thank you so much for making this app. It gives me this strength. I had negative thoughts about myself. Now I feel closer to my God. I feel that blessing. And if you just step back, as a person who has taken up this profession of creating products for the masses, this is the best use of my time and my talent and my team's talent and our collective work. Where I remember, right, 2010s, 2020s, in that time, we all used to say that, hey, the best brains in the world are busy making you click an ad about a thing that you don't need. But here is this purpose that we have got, where whatever we have created, few lines of code is giving you this kind of happiness. It was very rewarding. It was hugely gratifying. And I was like, if this is the impact that these lines of code are making in the lives of people, worth chasing. So that was the pull for me. That kind of user love I did not receive in my 7-8 years of app building back in the day. It was so good. I was like, this is worth putting your life behind and building for the people. Now, as we built it, when I was walking towards this problem statement, I thought it's a beautiful green pond. And it's nice. I was walking towards it. As I approached, I realized it's a huge ocean. Huge ocean where it's scary at the same point in time because there's so many people waiting to be served. They have very diverse needs. So I started thinking it as a pond. It's a huge ocean of opportunities, I would say. Now, as we kept on building it, one thing that has kept going is the kind of user love we have been receiving. And it has not been easy because in Hinduism, the needs are fairly diverse. People engage in different ways in different frequencies. There's no regime. And you have to, and you don't have any benchmark. You don't have any parallel. So you have to think of a behavior. You have to think of building that behavior on the product by not falling in the traps of you being a content platform, hence solve for a behavior. Then once you have an engaged user, then you see what else you can. So essentially the whole journey for us, which has got here, has been around user obsession. That's all I would say. So and when I just step back today, right, as we think of doing more for these people, if you think about this, right, roughly 250, 300 million people pray on a daily basis. Similar amount of number of people pray on a weekly basis or a monthly basis. And all of them, the entire country prays on Diwali, prays on Ganesh Utsav, prays on that. So that's the kind of market we're talking about. That's the kind of needs we're talking about. It's massive. So when I started, I started for user obsession. But now I feel that there is a huge volume of people who are waiting for a trusted platform for their needs to be served. And we have a huge responsibility on our shoulders.
Very interesting. Very interesting. You know, what I'm hearing you say is, you know, as long as you're really obsessed about the users, constantly thinking user backwards, and really immerse themselves in their journeys. I think paths will emerge, and especially in spaces which at first glance also seem so large, right? While they might seem very opaque, but as you keep uncovering, things will manifest. I guess that goes to saying, like, a lot of times, we hear people say that good founders create markets, right? I guess those are opaque contours of a market, but then you have to keep going, dig deeper, keep uncovering that to some extent. So very, very exciting to hear that.
But Amit, I have a question here. When we were very early in the journey, we had signals of strong user love, but still number-wise, traction-wise, we were very, very early. I'm curious what you guys saw in us and decided to partner. And this was August of 2021. This is like 7-8 months into the company formation. What did you see in us back in the day, which gave you the conviction that this is the company you would want to work with and build?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I think few things, right? Like, one, I think we've had the luxury of knowing you for a long time, right? Even through your 10 years of app building, I think we've known you for a significant number of those years. So at least the relationship was there. It was always positive, some level of positive affirmation towards saying, look, Prashant is somebody we want to at some point, work with. So obviously there was that undertone. But more importantly, I think on this space specifically, look at, as Elevation, we were also very troubled by this dichotomy. And, I spoke about that in the intro, of saying, like, everybody is building towards a transaction economy. These are things you can see more obvious, very obvious, look at you in the face. So food delivery, commerce, all of that. But the most pervasive of user behaviors is actually spirituality and religion, right? It surrounds us, especially as Indians, and even globally. I think it surrounds us in every aspect of our daily life, right? Right from the time you start your day to where you end your day. And so we almost could see this dichotomy of saying, look, here is the deepest of all consumer behaviors. It manifests itself in so many ways, whether it's content, meditation, transactions, Chadava, puja. So there are myriad of activities users do. But why has this not been digitized? Like, every aspect of our lives is digitized now, right? We're booking doctor's appointment, everything is coming home, quick commerce is bringing things home to us. We are constantly touched by technology, but this such a pervasive aspect is not digitized. So one, that thought was almost troubling us, that, this is looking at it in the face, but we just, are not able to find that intersection of somebody thinking about it as deeply or building about this as deeply as we feel about it, as investors. So one, there was this thing where we were almost hunting to say, look, something needs to be done here, right? I think what stood out for us, when we spent time with you was just I think we've already spent so much time talking about this, but the level of user obsession, this was evident really back in those days. And I remember our almost first few Zoom conversations. This was when there was COVID, everything was in lockdown. We couldn't even meet. So we were just talking over Zoom and over WhatsApp messages. But every time, we would have this conversation, I would personally walk back saying, look, here's this founder who's only thinking, who's my user, what can I solve for them, and just is really, really committed to this cause, right? And this was an abstract space to build in, because there's so many ways you can do this. You could argue that, so much of this content is on YouTube or Facebook, so why do we need this? So much of this community is on WhatsApp, so why do we need this? It's sort of scattered in so many places, but I think your articulation of saying, hey, this is the user, this is how I see their journey through the day. And you spoke about this, but this needs to be aggregated. This needs to come together. And when I bring this together, I can really, really make it a significantly superior experience. I think at that point, we didn't even think of transactions. We didn't even know that those would be big unlocks sitting down the path. But, sort of your view of the user, your obsession with that, the depth at which you were going to collect insights, like, I personally and us as Elevation, we all walked away convinced that, this is a journey we are really excited about and we want to partner, right? And for us, I think it was similar, the space seemed large enough. And, there are obviously numbers around it. Religion in India is probably a $40-50 billion market. We could see it around us. But I think it really needed that founder and that team to unlock value out of it, right? And so for us, that was the spike, and that got us really, really excited about
one thing I would want to share, right? What I loved in the whole process was the first principle thinking that you guys brought into the table, where there were a lot of unknowns for us. But I really enjoyed the whole process of that, hey, there is a partner who approaches the same problem statement and he knows, or the team knows, that there is no global benchmark or a parallel for us to copy from. So hence this approach to do company building around this particular space and this particular user need. And I really enjoyed those conversations where I was able to resonate with the way you guys were thinking about the problem statement, and the way you were questioning the way we were thinking of building and whatnot. So that really stood out of me, and I realized that this is a generational company that we are building. It is going to, I mean, if I'm not building it for 7, 10, 20 years, right? I mean, I should ideally hang my boots and someone else taking over is how should be building this company. And I realized people on the other side of the table are equally important when you're taking these kind of bets. And I could get that comfort with you folks. And that's when we were like, hey, this should be done. It should be done.
No, I'm glad. And I think we're now 2.5, 3 years into the journey, and our faith in AppsForBharat is only grown stronger. So very excited. And, over time, I think we've together uncovered so many things. So personally also, it's been a very, very fulfilling journey to see both your journey as well as the journey of the company.
I think particularly figuring out the engagement loops that we had figured out, post that, what will people pay for? So essentially being a free engagement first platform to being a platform that adds value in the lives of people in a very, very real utilitarian way is how we started monetizing. And I think that whole journey of figuring out things, of figuring out what will people need, what will people pay for, what will people value, what will they pay repeatedly, was for me hugely gratifying and full of learnings, I would say. And there's, of course, for us a lot more to do, but it was good.
Yeah. No, actually, I would love to, that journey that we've had, I would love to spend some time now uncovering that. So again, I think if you go back in the days, 2.5, 3 years ago, you just started working on this, right? And so from the perspective of, again, early stage founders who were just sort of seeding with that first idea, how did you, back in those days, the app is much less complex than what it is today, right? It's much more simplistic in what it offers. How did you build comfort that something is working? A lot of times we say that, I know we spend a lot of time on data, but really, like, you can't, in those very early days, you can't see these things in data, right? You sort of feel what that V1 or V.5 of PMF is. So for you, what was that? What gave you the comfort that you were in the right direction? You should double down on this. How were those days for you?
Okay, so the first thing that we did was we had a very data-backed approach to building this. When it came to devotion, we realized that there are a lot of offline behaviors which could be potentially moved online. So we launched 4 apps which were built on these offline behaviors. What we really observed in all of those 4 apps was this spiky user love. So for any one of us, when it comes to identifying whether this works or not for a user, you have to find few people out of the people that you have acquired who really love what you have built. I think that's the first indicator, which is when you talk to people, when they send you their notes, how deep is that conversation? Now, I also would suggest be very mindful when people say it's a good app and end there. I feel that is a misleading statement because people usually are conformist. When people go on to explain what this app or product means to them, that's where you understand that they spend time to explain what value do they find in this particular product, is where the first set of indicators you'll be able to get. Second, I feel when we do our user calls, and we still do, and this is a very active process that we follow in our company even today, what is the kind of excitement that you hear in the voices of people when they tell you about how do they use the app, what is the value that they add in their life? Put questions like, and I used to do this, right? I used to ask them that it takes a lot of money to be able to build this. It is very difficult for us to be able to bear this kind of server cost and people cost and whatnot. And people used to say, I'll pay. I'll pay for this particular thing. I mean, you tell me how much I have to pay. So basically, you realize that, and this was back in the day when it was just a content platform. We did not know how to monetize this, and we knew that we'll not run ads ever on this platform. And when we used to call the users, people used to openly say, "Ki I am willing to contribute, keep this app running." Now, this is the first set of information which gives you some validation that there's something which is working here. Second is, look at a segment of users. We should not be like very small, but when you say power users, right, what is the power user indicating? For us, because we were trying to move an offline habit online, it was important for us to look at patterns which indicate that this app has become a daily habit for people or weekly habit for people. So power user curves was another indicator for us to understand, are people using it in the frequency in which they would use it in the offline world? And that's when I would say, ki, okay, this works for 15% people, 10% people, 20% people, can be now extrapolated to another 50%, 60%, and that's what the journey we are on. Early in the day, we realized that this app works. People are using it every single day ever since they came on the platform. And that was a huge validation. So I would say these two things, this primary data that you get from the people, two, when you look at the data of the usage of these people, you get a sense.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
Very interesting. So I mean, you say almost like marry the two, right? Like there's obviously data you're seeing. But also on the user, what I'm hearing you say, like really push that conversation. You know, that single word comment of saying it's good or bad is not really right. Like your true user would really care. They would talk more. No, absolutely. Like today we see that across spaces. You know, I agree with you that everything is good is the worst answer you can give, right? Either push that to for critique or sort of what you like.
You should go to our reviews on Google Play Store, you know, and I would look at the negative ones, how intense they are. They are saying that, hey, I get these daily engagement coins on this particular app for my engagement, for my daily practice. I'm not getting this. You are breaking my streak. How can you do that to me? And then there are 5 smileys of them crying. If they have offered a chadhawa on the platform and the video gets delayed by 2 to 3 days because of operational gaps and whatnot, you see the kind of anger that they put, saying, so which means your app is part of their lifestyle and part of their daily life. And if that intense conversation is not happening, there's something missing. So today when I see, right, I get this comfort that, of course, we are not there everywhere. We have not become this household name yet, but there are initial indicators in certain audience who resonate with what we are trying to build. And I feel look-alike of that audience seems like a large number, so we should be able to get there. So this is how you build comfort. So early in the day, I would say look for user feedback, look for data. It's fine if it is not working for the entire 100% user base.
Got it. But some pocket which really resonates
and
with it.
And some pocket cannot be 1%, 2%.
Yeah. And you have a sense that this pocket is meaningful enough, right? When you really double down on this persona of what this user is. And how did you reach this, you know, this first set of users? Again, you've just launched the app. Did you do digital, or how did you acquire that first set of users? What was...
So in this one, you know, we were like, we said that, hey, here's the proposition that we have made. We'll put simple ads for people that there is this devotional app that we have built for you. Very simple ads which just say that there's this app which is this theme. And we used to spend that point in time 500 rupees per day of sorts at 5 rupees CAC to begin with, to get 100 customers per day, 100 users per day. Then we started getting 1,000 users per day, and that's where we kept it. We kept it 1,000 users per day for a very long period of time. For the first 1 year, we just kept it at 1,000 users per day. And what we used to observe was how this user is actually using the app, what are the power users engage in what kind of things, what then translates, and then kept developing. So for us, I would say the first 20-30K installs were primarily us investing small chunks of money. So let's say spending 5,000, 6,000 rupees per day on a Facebook or a Google just to get this user and get a flavor of what he's using the app for.
Very interesting. And then let's say, you know, cut forward to a year from that journey, you know, and that's roughly the time when we decided to partner, where you were really thinking about, I think you had developed that comfort on saying, look, I've obviously discovered some version of what works here, and now is the time to start scaling. But we were still I would say a content and community first kind of platform. So cut to that point, how did you figure out what's the right point at which to scale? How did you think about scaling at that point? What was priorities for you? And when you contrast them to that first phase which you just spoke about, how did the world change in that second phase of our journey?
Sure. So the framework in which we have built this particular company is the user should engage onto the platform. See, what the problem with devotion as a field has been over the last 10 years, it's not that many apps have not come in this space. Many apps have come in this space. But my problem with a lot of people who are building this particular space is they do understand that people are vulnerable. You tell them something, they'll transact. But I feel that as a bit of a mistreatment to the beliefs of these people. So what I've observed in various apps, and I'll tell you why I'm telling you this. What I've observed in many of the apps which has come in devotion as a category, that they were not respectful of this behavior. So for example, many apps used ads, where I came for finding this digital space where I could connect. And I'm in that activity of connecting, and you throw me an ad which is totally off context and throws me off that particular context and so on. That's one set of ads. Second set of apps were the ones which were purely transactional in nature. You buy this, you buy this, you buy this, and leveraging on the vulnerability of people and so on. So I realized if this space were to be solved for people, the first thing that has to be done is trust building. And trust building is when you don't push a sale from day zero. You say that, hey, here is what I'm going to deliver to you. You come and engage and you see who we are. That will lead to trust building. That trust building will lead to user opening up and telling you that, hey, in our journey particularly, people told us that, hey, I need access to this. I love you guys. Can you give me more? Can you give me more? And we just opened up to the whole idea that whatever thing they're asking might sound hard, might sound difficult to build, but let's just build it because there are a lot of people who are demanding for this. So our journey has been this. Engagement led to trust building led to user opening up. That gave us a lot of ideas on how do we build the business around that.
Very interesting. And then, I guess, we started from this concept of saying, look, when you're early, you're not solving for the world, solve for a few set of users. You were adding 100 users a day. You could be razor focused on what they're saying, or at least identify a consistent cohort who's speaking the same language. At scale, now this universe becomes complex, right? You now have many personas of this user. Just the sheer scale of users is very different. How do you still stay close to that? Because that'll be so much, I like your idea of saying like constantly listen to the user, but there's so much they'll tell you, they'll pull you in different directions. How do you prioritize? How do you still even like connect to them physically? Because there's so many of them. So how did you build that culturally and through the company as well? It can't just be with you as a founder. So how did you approach that phase?
Yeah. So we identified the key personas of who we should serve fully. And we are just chasing that, and we are now identifying adjacencies, and we're figuring out how do we serve that adjacencies as well, because they seem large as well. So like we discussed, right, the first couple of years was about how people who pray in the offline world, what will be a digital parallel, where we did not, like I told, right, we did not want to be a content company. Where we have seen in the past is content cost and content supply cost becomes too large for you to be able to run a platform like this. So we realized that, hey, how do we still move this particular behavior online? The first 2 years was about that, and the kind of users that we got in was just to test that particular behavior. So the first 2 years was, yes, people will pray online, is where we got to. Second phase was, yes, you have now people who engage on the platform. What will they pay for? Now, if you see, right, the journey then was to identify who will pray. Current part is the continuation of that journey. So we identified the people who will pray online, and we build solutions for them which will help them fulfill the rest set of needs. So that was the second phase of the journey, where we said that, hey, they would want access to various temples and their offerings and this and that. So all of this while we identified a persona and we kept serving them, and through that we are able to understand adjacencies which we feel now could be included in the platform, and we are going for serving them as well. So that's how the journey has been. It's primarily about identifying the core set of the user, kept serving them, and that is opening up more ideas for us.
Understood. And talk a little bit about the team at this point, because this is almost cultural of saying, if that's what you want to do, both the obsession with data as well as the obsession with what the user is telling you, right? It can't just stay with you as a founder. Now at scale where this team is significantly larger, how did you think about team building? How do you think about culturally sort of making sure the spine continues through the company?
Yeah. I think all the people who are there in this particular company, if you see, right, this is a very uncool space thematically for a youngster who has come out of the college to come and build. If you were to given a choice to build a fintech product or to build a product which solves for devotion, which might not be his primary use case, given that he is a techie, has come from X college, Y college, it is not a primary
Exams
use case for
are
him.
done, so they're not
Exams are done,
religious
yeah, they're
anymore.
not, yes.
Yeah.
So how do you get them to build for this category? And what I realize is one key criteria for us to understand is, are people empathetic about this particular space? So empathy is important. Now empathy could be not for me as a user. I might not pray. I might pray occasionally. But do I feel empathetic about the people who might be the end user? That's the first part for us. Second part of this is primarily around what you as a builder, you as a person who is building this particular product or the company, what do you think your role is? So hence we realize that people who work towards earning trust, people who are earnest, people who believe in serving this set of people, are empathetic, would form this particular base. So for us, that behavioral missionary alignment was the most important part while we put it together. Second part.
And how do you test for this? You met
Past
somebody.
experiences, just past experiences. There are, so if you are someone who is empathetic in life, it comes out. And there are patterns that we have identified internally to be able to get that. But there is no way I can ask you futuristic questions and understand whether you're empathetic or not, whether you're user obsessed or not. There would be enough number of things that you've done in life which will indicate that you have strong user obsession, which indicate that you have empathy, you don't judge, you are here to serve and whatnot. So things like this. So those set of behavioral patterns were something which were important, and people felt that this should be built. Now another part which is important is ambition and audacity. Now if I were to think of my career, it will be like 20-25 years of long career. If I spend 2.5-3 years in a company, I've roughly spent 10% of my important working age into building a company. If I were to choose a company where there's a proven model and I'll go build it, I would know for sure it will get built. But for a company like ours, there's a lot of ambition and audacity at play. They are the people, my team essentially is the one which I would say are true blue category creators mindset, right? They feel that if this gets made, how amazing this world is going to be. So there's a beautiful mix of ambition and audacity which is there in the team, where they do understand that the journey is going to be through many ups and downs. But what keeps them at it is that imagination that when people through a click of a button will get access to all of these services and information, and so many people in India and across the globe will do it, how magical would that word be? And I would want to be part of the team that goes on to build this. So these ingredients, when they come together, is what my team looks like today, I would say. And there's a process through which we actually put this whole team, we actually value our values over anything else and so on. So that's how we have put this team together.
Very interesting. And in early days, like you said, look, this is not the coolest of spaces to be building in. You were a fresh grad, hungry to take on the world, want to change the world, and everything around you is telling you to, I don't know, build a fintech new card for millennials and Gen Zs. But did you have to do a lot of selling in those early days, that first few team members? Like, how do you then, because I'm just not coming into this conversation with excitement.
We get very, so it's like this, either it doesn't interest someone or it does interest. So I'll tell you many examples where someone came and said that I don't know why, and we were interviewing this person, I don't know why people will be using it. Now what this person by curiosity did is he gave this particular app to his mom and to his sister. And then he started listening bells every morning. And this person then said that, hey, I want to be part of this company.
I hear those bells, by the way, from my mom's room.
So it has been, it is roughly a year and a half since this guy is building this, very passionate and so on. My point is people find their purpose. The other thing is foolish courage. I feel to be able to build a category like this, you need a lot of foolish courage in people. And foolish courage plus many more things together. So a lot of people will come to you and they would say कि मुझे बनाना है ये. I would want to build this. I would want to contribute. And you have to just pick those people along with other ingredients and so on. So I think for us, it was more about identifying these sparks in people's eyes when they thought about this category, thought about the opportunity. And I think these are the you can't train people in the early days to be able to have user obsession, empathy, and so on. You need to pick the people who would have it inherently. As company scales, purpose will change for some people, but we would want to keep this thing consistent across, I would say. So for us, for this journey, empathy and user obsession and bunch of these things that I spoke about becomes very, very important. And that's a key qualifier for anyone when we look at it when it comes to hiring.
Got it. I want to fast forward to today where now we've, discovered that there's so much more we can do. We can really bring digital experiences to people, enable them, like you were saying earlier, to offer prayers and offerings at destinations of their choice, which they never had access to, or they would just wait years for that. But before that, give us a sense of where we are today in terms of scale and usage and so on. So give us some sense, and then I want to talk more about today.
Roughly 3 million people use the app every single month. Now, what most of these people do is, for coming on this particular app, they would come open the app, pray, the digital form of the God. So around 70% of the audiences go and do digital praying. Half of it would engage with the literature and all the audio and all of that we provide. So that's what the engagement split looks like. I would not put the percentage here, but a certain percentage of it who engages goes on and avails the services. And the services that we are talking about are very simplistic, where today is Ekadashi. I believe in Lord Vishnu. I would want to make an offering in my name and my family's name at this temple in Gaya. And because we give you proof of the offering and whatnot, you do it on every Ekadashi. Now that's one behavior. Other thing. So this is like small ticket size item. Think about this, right? In $100, if you get to hear your name with items being offered, that's a huge gratification for anyone. Second thing is, let's say if there's another behavior of I wanting to get pujas done in my family's name at various pilgrimages, because again, I would access those pilgrimages once in a year, once in a lifetime, and so on. And those things are important. Those rituals are important. We again give you a very trusted mechanism through which you can participate in those pujas. And through that, we are going deeper. So we have those users who are availing our services, and we are building more for them as they're asking for more and so on. So this is how the platform looks today. People come for engagement. A certain percentage of them, depending on the trigger, go on and avail our services.
Got it.
Monetize.
Got it. And now, as you think about it, I think there's so many layers to our journey. There is, like you said, started in a content layer. There is content and community to start with. We started going deeper into these digital journeys. That was almost another phase of life, and now we are actually enabling so much of this. But this requires physical infrastructure at these temples, at these holy places where people want to offer prayers and offering. How has the muscle for the company changed? How has the company changed? Because we're doing many different things, very different complexities opening up. Suddenly I can imagine like little hubs running in these places. So I'm curious, for our audience, like how has the DNA of the company changed, or how has the nature of the business changed?
Yeah. So we have actually structured a company in modules. So there is this central team which takes care of the app and the engagement on the app. There's another team which takes care of, so think of this, we actually have structured everything in terms of user flow and user journey, right? So there's this engagement layer of the app. So the earlier part of the company was just the engagement team where people would come and engage with this digital product. That's what it was all about. Now, last year when we started venturing into how do we monetize this particular users and help them avail our services and whatnot, a certain percentage of these people flow into our other verticals, which is Chadhawa, Puja, and bunch of other things that we are building right now. Now, there are people who are actually owning those particular modules, and an extension of that. So let's say there's a Chadhawa module. There's this central product part where we would manage how the whole fulfillment is going to be. There's another part which is the operation part where there's a team which manages all the partners looks at the quality and whatnot. So essentially, we are a very lean team if you look at it, right? Despite of the kind of volumes of people, so we help 10,000 people every single day to make an offering at a temple of their choice at this point in time. Now, even for that kind of scale, we are a team of 120 people. So we have kept it lean, worked with the partner network, created enablers and checks for them, and build a thorough system to be able to serve all of this.
Very interesting. And the other question I have is, given the nature of the business, is there a singular North Star we have today? Is there a series of metrics you look at? Like, what is your top of mind? Have you been able to distill down to one or the few things? The second link question I have is, it would sound like on this journey, revenue and monetization, you've spoken about a couple of times, could be one of those things. But then how do you prevent this from becoming very tactical and again, culturally through the team? Because this space, the other challenge with this space is this can become so opportunistic, right? Because people are vulnerable, our users are vulnerable. So how do you prevent that from happening? How do you keep a check on that?
Sure. The phase one of the journey was when the user retention was the key metric. We looked at near-term, long-term retention, which is, let's say, D30, week 4, month 3. These were the key metrics that we were actually optimizing on, which essentially told us how the engagement on the platform is going to be. When we moved from engagement to monetization, where we said that, again, if you see, right, only a single-digit percentage of these people would transact. Now, we could get a more set of people to transact, but given the nature of the business that we're building, we don't want to be that commercial platform for them. We would want to be an enabler for them. So where here's this engagement path, you come across the service, you like it. If this is a trigger, you go and transact. Now, as we are progressing into this journey, we are looking at what percentage of the people who were engaging earlier are now using our services. Again, using the retention framework, where just revenue is not important. Repeat revenue is important. Are you able to build a service where there's a repeat revenue that is coming into play? So these three things, right? Retention on the platform side. Here, what percentage of people convert and avail your services, and what's the kind of repeat rate you're observing, and does it add to your CAC LTV math in some way or not? So that's more of a check metric in a way. But the key metrics that we are actually obsessing on is how are the people retaining on the app, what is their usage frequency on the engagement side, what percentage of them convert, and what is their usage frequency over a period of time is how we are looking at the metrics at this point in time.
Understood. Super useful. Very, very interesting, I think, to uncover the journey of sorts, from starting days over many years that you've had. I want to shift to, the last part of the conversation where I'm curious, you've had this journey just in AppsForBharat for many years now. Before that, you were a founder as well, and you've always been dabbling around. If you reflect on your experiences in your journey, what are some, I don't know, like maybe mistakes is not the right word, maybe things you would have done differently, maybe actually mistakes you made. And this could be anything in the way you approached building a business or anything. But I'm curious, like top few words of advice for our audience.
Yeah. So there are these 3 keywords that people use, which is product, team, market. Not in this order: market, product, or team. And this is what I've heard from investors multiple times, where they say, okay, great product, small market, all of that particular part. I feel
we have a 2x2 of
exactly.
good products and good
everyone
markets.
would have heard it. Everyone here would have heard it. So I'm not going into that deeper. But I'm just saying that is there. But the first part I always realized was, are you getting that sharp user love? If you're not getting that sharp user love, change till you get that. So a significant set of people should demonstrate very high quality user love or usage or it becoming a part of their life. Now that's in other projects I've built in the past, I have not overly indexed on this one line that I said just now. I think that is the first stepping stone to be able to build something that could become large. And of course, there are chances at every single step that you're taking, but this is the first part. Do people really care?
And the blind spot there in your mind is, so I'm hearing you, or I'm reading this as saying, look, sometimes the market seems intuitive and large. The product is obvious, you can visualize it. And then you get lost in those and you don't really focus on saying, look, am I really delivering delight? Versus you're saying focus on the delight, the market might not be that intuitive.
No, I'll come to that part now. So that is so even if the market is good or great, I would say this will determine the trajectory of the business in some way or the other. The market, of course, has to be large enough. That's more of as in when you evaluate something, right? I've gone and built into categories where I realized in my mind the market was very large, the need was large, numbers would add up. But when you look at this core user behavior, you do extrapolation of your TAM based on this core user behavior, that this is what it is today. It could extrapolate to this, but then what does the TAM look like today? I could say devotion TAM is all the people in the country, but I might not be able to serve all of them. My current estimates say that this is the core user behavior I've identified, and this, if I extrapolate to this market and find a lookalike of this audience, it still looks large. Now that two-level validation becomes very, very important, because often what we do is we get too biased by saying that, hey, this is a very large market, no-brainer. We don't look at our current user behavior, who are you serving, how you're serving, and so on, and then don't do a backtracking of that. I think two-way thinking is important. Second most important part is ambition and audacity. See, I think as a founder, your life is not going to be easy. The first 3.5 years of my company building, I was barely able to pay my house rent, is how much money I was drawing. And it is hard. Had I continued in my previous workplace where I was working, I would have made a lot more money. So given that it is a choice that you have made to be able to build something, make sure that you push yourself to be more ambitious and more audacious. It might not come naturally to you, but I think ambition and audacity are rate limiting, and you should be mindful when you make a choice. It will take the same amount of time and courage and effort to build a $10 million company, $100 million company, and a $1 billion company, and so on. Now that valuation is not important. When I use that particular 3 words, it is more about the size of impact we're talking about. So I would say the first part is focus on user love and the market. Second part is pure ambition and audacity. You need to have that, and if you believe it, you'll get there. And given all the education, all the things that we have had and the privileges that we had, that's the least we can give to the nation.
Very interesting. I like the statement, you're only limited by your ambition and audacity, and if you're in the journey, then go at it with everything you've got.
I know we'll be a bit over time, but I'll tell you this story which actually has stayed with me, and I'll tell you why I chose to stay in India and kept on building for India. It was my orientation program back at IIT Bombay. My HOD walks in and he asks us this question: how much money do you pay for a year to be able to attend this course? And it was peanuts, right? 50,000-60,000 rupees ke aaspas hota hai. Then he says, how much money do you think the government of India spends on helping you get this education? And that number was roughly in 20s of lakhs and so on. Then he says, who sponsors this? And then he puts up a slide and shows 4-5 images of the taxpayers of this nation. And he said that when you graduate and when you pick up a job, remember this moment. So the people who have subsidized your education, you should build for them, enable their lives in some way or the other. And we are a large underserved nation. You need to have ambition and audacity to be able to serve that nation right. So hence I feel ambition and audacity becomes very, very important if you were on this particular purpose and on this particular track, I would say.
Right. Very interesting. Very, very different perspective as well. I think last question I want to, how did you think about sort of capital raising, the right kind of partner? How did you think about it through the journey you've had, and then how do you think about it looking ahead? And has that framework evolved significantly or changed significantly? But again, for our listeners, like how should they approach the capital journey?
Yes. I would say it's not important for all kinds of business to raise capital. There are school of thoughts: should I be bootstrapped? Should I raise capital? It all depends on the kind of ambition that you have. For the kind of ambition that I had, I need to build a tech platform, and tech platform requires cost, requires certain kind of scale for me to chase the model of business that I was trying to build for. So hence that capital was important for me to seed the platform, seed the behavior, and of course. And now when you raise capital, again depends on what's the kind of company that you're building. We are building a generational company, very clear on that. We are building for this impact and we are going into the unknown. So when you choose a capital provider, you have to look whether the larger themes of company building that you have in your mind, how does this person who is going to be in your life for the next 7, 10, 15 years, how does he resonate with all of those key elements and factors that you think are important to company building? And do not take a call on that choice if you feel there is a mismatch on how you think you would approach company building versus how this person thinks you should do company building. At the end of the day, it's your company. You are building it. The job of an investor is to be able to support you. And here are a few ways in which you can test whether this person will be a great supporter or not. But at the end of the day, it's your company. You should take the call. You should choose the right kind of people who would be with you, play with you, and play the long game with you. And so I think that chemistry is important. That vision alignment, ideology is important, and also understanding how this partner behaves when chips are down. So if you get satisfying answers as a choice of partner, for example, you should go ahead with that. So it depends on your ambition, whether you should raise capital or not, and then choice of partner becomes very, very important. So for us, very fortunate to have the kind of board that we have. All the people that we have, Elevation especially, has played a very important role in our journey so far. People who actually ask the right questions, be a sounding board, help us figure out the unknown. For example, the exercise that we are doing to understand the latent user needs is very, very helpful, where we are doing these deep user calls and understanding their needs and whatnot. You need this kind of partner where I do understand that I have people limitation. And thanks to you and thanks to the team, which is actually helping me identify some of those things. I think I'll be, and I'm already sensing that there is something that we are getting out of that whole exercise, but hugely grateful and indebted towards that effort that you're putting. I think early in the journey, it's more than capital. Later in the journey, once the business set, you would need growth capital. That's different. But the first couple of rounds, couple of partners become very, very important. And I realize that the kind of effort that a partner would put in helping me identify what's the opportunity and how to chase it will be important, because of course we are limited hands and limited heads. So if there is any extension of need that we would need, how will they support it, becomes very, very important as a criteria. And I'm very fortunate that all the people that we have on the board believe that it should be made, are excited about how this is unfolding, and they're supporting us through this whole process of discovery, and very grateful for all of this.
Great. Thank you, Prashant. I think that was a really insightful conversation. I really enjoyed our conversation. I think, for our listeners as well, it gives great perspectives on how to approach this journey, long, hard journey of company building. I'm sure your perspectives would be very, very useful for our listeners as well. If you're an early stage founder, building in the social and content space, feel free to reach out to us. You can find us through our Twitter, LinkedIn bios, or just connect with us through our website. But we look forward to connecting with more folks as well. Thank you.
Thank you.